Hey guys, Triple B here. We're back to cover the top 8 for the most recent budget build battle tournament over on Limitless. It's the second official one that we've had. Third one's coming up this upcoming Friday. So if you're interested, link in the description down below to sign up. It is based in the Australian Central Time Zone, so it might be a little bit funny depending where you are in the world, but if you're based in North America and are interested in the format, just let me know in the comments down below and we can organize one for your guys' time zones as well. The format though, it's pretty fresh, so if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, the whole idea of it is no rule box cards, so no A-Specs, no Radiants, no EXs, no Vs. None of that nonsense. We're going to let the single prize Pokemon kind of take the spotlight for once. There is also the limitation of only 2 copies of a card with the same name in your deck. Basic energies don't have a name, so run as many of those as you like, but special energies, trainer cards, Pokemon, only 2 with the same name. There is an exception though with basic Pokemon. So if a basic Pokemon in your deck can evolve into a stage 1, you can have 1 extra copy of the previous evolution. If it evolves into a stage 2, you can have up to 2 extra copies of the basic in your deck. It's pretty easy. I feel like, yeah, for each stage that's in there, 1 extra copy of your basic if you'd like. And that's pretty much it. Stage 1s, they don't scale up if you have stage 2, so it is limited to effectively a 4-2-2 line at most. You could run a 4-0-1 line though if you wanted for some reason. You can kind of be a little bit cheeky with that though. But in terms of the tournament, so how it's been working, we are seeing a bigger turnout. This week we actually had 25 people, 25, 26. Let's double check my math here. Yeah, we had 25 people turn out this week with a number of different decks. On here, it's just going to show up as other because these are cards that don't normally see play, with the exception of Regigigas. So we did have 1 Reggie. Oh, actually 2 Reggies in here. Nice. That's pretty sick. But yeah, top 8. This is what we're going to be covering today. So we had Milky Way getting first place, Juzo on second, P-Star in third, and Jab in fourth. I actually ended up getting 5th this week, which is it's nice. Last week I was the only one judging, so it was a little bit tricky, but this time around was able to focus on gameplay a bit more and made it to the top 8. Andretti getting 6th, Mohar in 7th, and TJ in 8th. Milky Way brought a very interesting deck list focusing on steel Pokemon. So it's got the Metang line in there to accelerate some energy out for you. Clutch card. Very, very helpful. Also the Bibro line for some draw power, but then the attackers are what really stand out here. So he's got the Heatran that can just do really big numbers, right? 3 energy, and then it's going to discard every energy attached to it, every steel energy attached to it, I should say, and does 50 damage for each one you discard. So if you have 3 energy on it to attack, you're doing at least 150, and you can scale that up accordingly if you need to go into bigger targets. It's also got Basculegion in there, so later in the game, after Heatran's sacked a bunch of energy, this can just get it back from the discard, and does 20 damage for each energy in your discard pile, putting it back into your deck, so Metang can then access them from your deck again to reattach to your Heatran and other attackers. Also, the fact that it evolves from Basculin with Gather the Crew, it's a great way to establish your bench early in the game. These aren't the only attackers though, you've also got Orthworm in here. It's got the ability Nutritional Iron. If this has 3 or more steel energy attached to it, it gets an extra 100 HP, so 130 becomes 230. Pretty big. In standard, it's not too crazy because you have EXs that have that much, but in this format where it's all single prizers, having 230 HP is pretty massive. It does do 100 damage for 4 energy, and it's also going to hit 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so it can be good to set up some numbers. You've also got Zamazenta in here as a revenge knockout attacker. It's got the attack Retaliate, 100 base damage, but if one of your Pokemon was knocked out by your opponent on their last turn, 120 more, so it gets up to 220, knocking out most things in the format. The ability on here, Metal Shield, also makes it so you're going to take 30 less damage from attacks when this is hit. So it's effectively got 160 HP if they're trying to one-shot it, or that's what, 190 if they're trying to go for a 2-shot. Not too shabby. Also having Jirachi in here just to help out, give some protection against damage counters. Sableye is a thing. Also the attack on here could come up. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy, reveal them, put them into your hand. Just make sure that you have energy to attach manually. You've got 18 in the deck, so just getting a couple of those into your hand isn't going to hurt. Metang's still going to be finding lots, and it just makes sure that you're not missing any attachments return. The supporter lines in here, it's pretty standard stuff, well, at least for this format. So Boss's Orders, Arven, you're going to recognize from standard. Adaman for steel decks, it's just a great supporter to include. Discard 2 steel energy from your hand, get any 2 cards from your deck. Just, yeah, that's great. You've got a lot of steel energy, you can afford to throw them away, you can recover them with Super Rod, putting them back into your deck so Metang can then get them out and onto your attackers, and Adaman's getting into you and any 2 cards that you want. Like, That's sick. For straight draw cards though, you do have Iono, obviously a bit of disruption, always good, and Mortis Conviction. You get to discard one card from your hand and then draw a card for every one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it can effectively be a straight draw 5 card. Use Bibarel, get into a 5 card hand, then use Morty. You ditch one, you effectively get into a 9 card hand off of that though. So yeah, it's pretty sick. Airzu to help get into your evolution pieces, your Bibarels, your Basculegion, your Matangs. Not too bad. And then Lana's Aid just to recover your Pokemon from the discard and instantly back into your hand. So if your attackers are getting knocked out, only having one copy of the Orthworm and Zamazenta as examples and the Basculegion line, being able to recover them can always be good. Also has the flexibility of getting energy cards from your discard if you'd like as well. The rest of the cards though, pretty straightforward stuff. Switch, Nestball, Buddy Poffin, Ultra Ball. Don't really think I need to explain what those do. Luxurious Cape seeing play in here as well though. So makes your Zamazenta and your Orthworm even bigger. Chuck this on an Orthworm. When it's got 3 energy attached, you effectively have 330 HP on a basic Pokemon. Not bad, especially since you have Full Metal Lab in here as well, making it take 30 less damage from attacks when it gets hit. It's pretty spicy. It's pretty spicy. I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised we're not seeing a Penny in here as well, because having the Earthworm and Zamazenta that can be tanking hits, and when Full Metal Lab's in play, eat some hits, scoop it up, rinse, repeat. Very interesting idea to play around with, and had an Artisan in here as well just to help establish their bench. Something to be mindful of in this format. Yeah, it's really helpful to set up your bench, but your opponent's going to be able to capitalize on that too, so just keep that in mind. In here though, definitely makes a lot of sense. You want to be getting your Beldums out quickly to evolve into Matangs. You want to be getting Bidoof out to get your Bibarels. So yeah, honestly sick list, and again, congrats Milky Way on taking the win this week. Next, in second place, we had Juzo with an Ancient Box Deck. We've got Koraidon in here, fighting in a colorless, does 30 damage for each your ancient Pokemon in play. So if you have a full bench of ancient Pokemon, that gets you up to 180. Not a bad number to be hitting, especially in this format. You're taking out most targets, exception being those steel Pokemon we just saw that are a little bit bigger. So I think that's kind of why, that Steel Box took them down in the finals there. We've also got Roaring Moon. This attack's damage is going to scale based on the amount of ancient cards in your discard pile. So 2 Dark Energy, 70 base damage, and then scales up by 10 for every ancient card in your discard. We've got pretty much every ancient card in here, I believe. The exception being, I think there's a single prize Walking Wake, but it's just one of those Pokemon that if you open it, you don't really want to open it. You just want it to be in the discard pile. So I think the amount of ancient cards they have in here is fine, especially for this format. You don't need to be hitting crazy high numbers all the time. So just getting up to this, doing like 150, 160 is usually fine. You've got Brute Bonded in here as well. Does run Ancient Boost Capsule, so theoretically you could be attaching that to it to poison your opponent's active Pokemon for a bit of extra damage if you need. Having these 2 cards in the discard pile though means Roaring Moon would be doing some more damage, so it's more than likely you're just putting the Brute Bonnets in the discard, and if anything, using Ancient Boost Capsule to keep yourself out of knockout range for your opponent. Does have these Sandy Shocks in here as well, can be helpful for some type coverage, and just as a quick attacker you can charge up. 1 fighting energy, 20 base damage, and if you have 3 or more energy in play, 70 more damage, so hitting for 90 off 1 energy is not too bad, especially when you have Sada in the deck. So Sada, sure you guys are familiar with it, but what it's going to let you do is get 2 energy cards from your discard pile and attach them to 2 different ancient Pokemon you have in play, and then draw 3 cards. So you use this, you attach for turn, maybe use a Dark Patch, all of a sudden Sandy Shocks is able to do 90. You could pull that off turn 1. It's not too bad. Flutter Mane being in here as well, its ability shuts off your active or your opponent's active Pokemon's abilities, can be really detrimental into a lot of decks. So something like Lost Box, for example, they want to have Comfeys in the active to start using flower selecting. You're just saying, no, you can't do that. And you can be hitting them in the active for 90 while putting 2 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way that you'd like to help set up some numbers. So definitely a great way to buy yourself a bit of time and can really fix a lot of matchups. Does have Grace Tusk in here as well, so you have the option to go with Land Collapse, discard the top card of your opponent's deck, but if you played an Ancient Supporter, you're going to discard 3 more cards. So late game, if you see your opponent's gone a little bit aggressive on how many cards they're drawing, you could deck them out theoretically. Also in this format, the fact that we're limited to 2 copies of a card with the same name, if you're milling 4 cards, there's a high chance that you're going to take cards out that they really need to be able to play that game. So having a bit of mill is not a bad shout. Also having Slitherwing in here as another potential attacker, mostly in here because it says Ancient, but you do have the attack Burning Turbulence. It's going to do 120 damage, but 90 damage to itself. And Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned though. So basically 120 becomes 140 between turns, and if they don't get rid of that condition, could come back to 160. Might help out in some matchups. Maybe you gust up like a Baxcalibur, you hit it, they don't have a way to retreat it, bounces back, the burn takes them out, and then you hit something else. Yeah, could be really cool. Rest of the deck, though, I feel like it's pretty standard stuff. We've got Arven, Iono, Explorer's Guidance. It's an ancient supporter card. Solid. It's going to let you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, grab 2, ditch the other. So a great way to get your ancient cards in the discard pile while also getting you key pieces into your hand. Research, solid draw card, Boss for Gust. Carmine, another way just to get ancient cards in the discard pile. So you're going to sack your whole hand, draw 5. You can even use it first turn of the game if you're going first. With this deck, though, I feel like you want to be going second more times than not, just because you have that potential to use Sada and Dark Patch. You can be taking knockouts turn 1. 2 copies of Lost Vacuum in here is interesting. Definitely helps out for those decks that are running Luxurious Cape. We're seeing it see quite a bit of play in the meta, to be honest. It's even in this deck. So just to remove potentially 100 extra HP that your opponent has to get you into knockout or get them into the knockout range can be very helpful. 2 copies, it's pretty aggressive, but you know what? If it works, it works. They got second place, so fair. And yeah, the other cards in here I feel like are pretty self-explanatory. We've got the Luxurious Cape, we've already mentioned it. Emergency Jelly, I guess, can kind of help out with that Slitherwing. It attacks, we can heal it off after. Because if it's 30 HP or less remaining, oh, it only does 90 to itself. You did have 50. Okay, I guess it's just for those times where it's like you see your opponent's not going to quite get a full knockout into you. You can just heal that damage off. Interesting, very interesting. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on this list? Because I'm pretty keen that we saw somebody crack the code on Ancient Box. It was one of the decks that early days, I guess, in the format, we were saying like, it seems a little awkward. I don't think you can make it work, but we've seen 2 people in the top 8 with it. Because third place is P-Star, who also ran Ancient Box. Slightly different build, but for the most part, same idea. So we're seeing Pokestop in here, we're seeing Trekking Shoes, just ways to get more things into the discard pile and go pretty aggressive. Counter Catcher, I don't believe the previous list had, but the attackers for the most part are the same. We aren't seeing that Koraidon show up though, or am I blind? No, I'm blind, it's right here. So we are seeing the Koraidon show up. Also, I did forget to mention, it does have the Shred attack, which does 130 flat damage and isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So into that Steel deck where they had Zamazenta as a prime example, it has 130 HP, but the ability makes it take 30 less damage. Shred just goes, nope, you have 130 HP, I don't care about that ability, and knocks him out immediately. So pretty clutch. But yeah, the rest of the list, I feel like it's kind of just minor tweaks here and there. Very solid list. Take a look over it, see which one you guys would prefer, and let me know in the comments down below. Would you prefer P-Stars or would you prefer the previous Ancient Box deck we just saw? Getting 4th place, so we are seeing a Torterra list that was piloted by Jabs. So Torterra Evo Press does 50 damage as a multiplier for each evolution Pokemon in play. So effectively it's a flat 50 or base damage of 50, because if it's in play able to use this attack, it's an evolution Pokemon, you're going to be doing minimum 50 at all times, but you do want to get more evolution Pokemon onto your bench to obviously scale that damage up. And we're going to be able to do that pretty reliably. We've got Grottle with Sundrent Shell, so it can search your deck once per turn for a grass Pokemon, put it into your hand. Doesn't specify basic or evolution, just any grass Pokemon. So you can get your basics to start evolving them up, and you can get your evolutions to start evolving those basics up, which solid. It does evolve from Turtwig, base health of 80, but the ability makes it take 20 less damage from attacks, so effectively 100, and goes up from there if they're not able to one-shot you. The other grass Pokemon in this list, though, to kind of capitalize off that Grottle's ability, we do have the Beautify line. So it's got the ability Stoke Straw. Once during your turn, you can draw cards so you have 6 in your hand. It's like a slightly boosted Bibarel. The kind of the big thing here, though, is that it's grass type. So Grottle can get it, we can reliably get it set up, we can reliably get the base evolutions and get online quickly. If we went for a Bibarel line, there's just not a way to really search them out. So going for the Beautify, it does make a lot of sense. We also have the Kricketune in here, again, also searchable with Grottle. Its ability Swelling Tune makes it so your grass Pokemon in play have 40 extra health. So all of a sudden our Torterra is a 230 HP big boy that can be doing up to 300 damage if we have all evolutions in play. So not a bad shout. And yeah, also makes it so our Beautiflies effectively have 170. They're not as easy for our opponents to target down. Great inclusion for the list. We do have Squovid in here as well as Manaphy. So these are basic Pokemon. They don't scale up your Torterra's damage, so just be mindful in the matchups. If you need to be doing that maxed out damage, be careful benching these. But Nest Stash is going to let you just keep our Once during your turn, you can shuffle your hand onto the bottom of your deck and put one card off the top back on into your hand. I'm not sure why I'm struggling so much for reading this right now. Once during your turn, you can shuffle your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck. If any cards are put on the bottom of the deck in this way, draw a card. So yeah, it's just like bottom of the deck, draw a card. You're getting one card off of it, and it's a great way to reset and then use Beautify. So like you go down to a 1-card hand, Beautify, get into a 6-card hand, you're in a great way. Manaphy, just giving you some bench protection. There's not a lot of spread decks in the format, but we did see 2 make it into the top 8, so having Manaphy is definitely a great inclusion for this list to have. None of the other decks we've seen so far have had it, and this definitely gave it an edge into those spread matchups. The rest of the list, though, I feel like it's pretty straightforward stuff for the most part. Arven, Iono, you're more than likely familiar with them. We've seen them a few times now. Bill's Transfer is a bit of a different one. You're going to look at the top 8 cards of your deck, reveal any number of Pokemon you find there, and put them into your hand. It's quite a few Pokemon in this list, so it does make sense. You're going to be finding your grass guys, your basics, your evolutions, just straight drawing into them with Bills effectively. It's not a bad shout. Having Boss Disorders for some Gust, Gardenia just as a way to accelerate some energy out. Torterra's attack costing 2 energy can be a little bit awkward, so if we can just use Gardenia to 1 on the bench and then attach for turn to it, or theoretically if you have 2 grass energy in your hand, you can even just attach both them off Gardenia, attach for turn to another Torterra, then the following turn, that second Torterra is just 1 attachment away from being online. Great inclusion. We do have Switch to kind of help out with that, but I don't believe there's any freer treaters in here. Double check Beautify, no. So we don't have any like easy pivots for it. You'd have to be doing it with Switch, or just when you have something in the active already set up, start setting up your backup attacker. Carmine, just for that early game draw support. It's pretty solid. It is interesting this got included over something like Professor's Research though, because you're discarding your hand, drawing cards, Research giving you 2 more. Obviously the limitation being you can't use it first turn, whereas Carmine you can. With this being an evolution deck, you kind of want to go first to start that evolution process, but you also kind of want to go second since you do have Arven. So you go Arven, Buddy Poffin, and Evo TM? Oh, is there no Evo TM in here? Oh, yeah, no, this would be a going first deck then. Interesting. Never mind, because yeah, normally it's like Arven, Buddy Poffin, Evo TM, go. Like get 2 Grottles online, then use those to get your other guys online. Okay, interesting take. Having Bug Catching set in here though, it is a grass deck, so it's a great card to include. It's similar to like Great Ball. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Grab any grass Pokemon or basic energies either though, well, a combination of up to 2. So it's a great way to get your Pokemon or into energy cards. Solid inclusion for the list. And then having 2 copies of Pokemon League HQ is pretty big for this deck. So we did see the top 3 decks were basically attacking with basics, right? Like Ancient Box, you want to be attacking with basics. That Zamazenta, Orthworm, Heatran, they're all basics. This is going to make it so their attacks cost 1 colorless energy extra to be able to use them, so it can help fix up that math and make it really awkward for your opponent. Like Ancient Box, for example, they'd have to go Sada attach for turn to normally be able to attack, but then it's like, no, you need a 3rd thing. So if they're trying to go with Roaring Moon, they could Dark Patch to it. If they're trying to go with anything else, they have to go another turn before they can start attacking. So yeah, pretty spicy. I do like seeing that in this list. And in 5th place, we had Triple's Phantom Sniper. Cheeky little shout out. Hey me, this is your deck. So the whole idea of this deck list is it focuses on Dragapult with the Dragon Launcher attack. You can discard discard a number of your bench Dreepy up to the number of your opponent's Pokemon in play. Then for each Dreepy you discard in this way, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon and do 100 damage to it. So you can be sniping the bench. If they have Manaphy in play though, you can also just use this to hit the active for 100, so you're not completely blocked out by Manaphy, which is helpful. Dreepies, they're psychic types. So ideally we get 1 Dragapult set up, 3 basic Dreepy on our bench, start sniping our opponent, and because they're Psychic type, we have Tulip, which lets you get up to 4 in any combination of Psychic Pokemon and basic Psychic energy from your discard pile back into your hand. So we Dragapult, we ideally take out 3 things in one go, then we Tulip, bring back 3, try and take out another 3 things in one go. If they do have Manaphy in play, we have Canceling Cologne, so we can boss that up, Canceling Cologne, then shoot the Dreepies at them, while also hitting the Manaphy that's locked in the active. so that it's not doing anything the following turn, preventing anything. And we even have a Lost City, just to make sure when we kill that Manaphy, it's gone. Like, it's not coming back. The other nice thing about Dragapult, it does evolve from Dracloak with Recon Directive. So you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, one on the bottom of your deck. So just some solid draw support. The additional draw support we do have in here is Xatu, which lets you attach a basic psychic energy from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon and then draw 2 cards. So a great way to start setting up our Dragapult theoretically. Usually just need 1 energy to attack, but we can be charging it up to go for Spooky Shot, doing 120, or even charging up a secondary theoretical attacker in Monkey Dory. So it's Mind Bend attack, Psychic and a colorless, 60 damage, confuses your opponent's active Pokemon. Can be really helpful to just kind of like prevent your opponent from potentially hitting you. It's not bad and can definitely be helpful in a pinch. The real reason it's in here though is for Adrenabrain. Let me find my tongue there. For Adrenabrain, if it has a dark energy attached to it, you can move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon onto your opponent's Pokemon. So it just helps you fix up numbers, and then Dragapult just goes, all right, and then chuck a Dreepy at it to finish it off, right? Like if there's a Bibberol on their bench, put 3 damage counters off of one of your guys. That Bibberol's down to 90 damage now. Dragapult goes, chuck a Dreepy, and it's gone. Not too bad. To help out also with some math, we do have Frostlass, so between each turn, Freezing Shroud is going to put a damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability, ours and the opponent's. So it's going to be hurting Monkey Dories, it's going to be hurting our Zatus, our Dracloaks. It doesn't hurt itself, luckily, but it puts some damage counters out, softens up our opponent's Pokemon, and then Monkey Dory gets rid of some of the damage counters we've put on ourselves, puts it onto one of their guys, and can be taking some cheeky knockouts. Theoretically taking a knockout with Monkey Dory, not even having to attack, and then Dragapult knocking out another 3 things. We could have 4 prize turns. The other way we can cheat out some damage counters for Monkey Dory to play around with is with Gengar. So it's in the discard pile, we can use Netherworld Gate, comes from the discard pile, goes right onto our bench with 3 damage counters. Monkey Dory moves them off of that and onto our opponent's Pokemon. Not too bad. It also has an attack for just 1 psychic energy, which is helpful. Quick attacker we can get out. Screaming Circle, you're going to put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So if they have a full bench of 5, basically 100 damage for 1 psychic energy. It's not a bad shout, especially since it's almost treated like a basic, right? We don't need to evolve up into it. We just need to get it out in like a kind of secondary way. The rest of the cards in here, though, I feel like kind of speak for themselves. Bit different of a draw engine. We're seeing Judge in here, Disruption, and draw power for ourselves. Airzu to get into our evolutions. We have Dracloak, Dragapult, Frostlass, and Xatu, as well as it can get our Gengar and then just like discard that with Ultra Ball or Earthen Vessel to cheat it out. Not a bad shout. Arita helping us get our Frostlass or our Snow Runs, as well as getting an item to help set up into other things. So it could be getting our Earthen Vessels just to get our Dark Energy and bring Monkey Dory online. Could grab a Buddy Poffin to help establish our bench, or could even grab a Rare Candy to get a Dragapult out really quickly. Also seeing Iono, Arven, Research, feel like they're pretty self-explanatory cards. A mix of Lana and Tulip. I did talk about Tulip earlier. The reason for having Lana is that it can get into our Frostlass, it can get into our Dracloaks, it can get into the Dark Energy. So if we need a Dark Energy from the discard to make Monkey Dory able to use its ability, this is helpful and then can still grab us 2 Dreepies back if we need. I did include 1 copy of Roseanne's backup, probably be cutting it from the list. The idea with it though is just that if I had to go like Research and lost a Devolution, or lost, probably not Rescue Board, but like lost Devolution, or if Lost City gets bumped, it's a way to get a second one out in a game. Can be really helpful. Gets a Pokemon, gets a tool card, a Stadium, and an Energy, so some solid recovery. But ultimately, I feel like it would have just been better as a second Earthen Vessel just to get into our Dark Energy when we really needed them. Pokemon Search, pretty standard stuff in here. We do have 2 Super Rods just to be able to recycle our Dreepies some more, as well as get our energies back. And then, yeah, Rescue Board just to be able to set something up in the active with Free Retreat effectively. Most of our guys just have 1 retreat, with the exception being Gengar, I believe. You check that on anything, it becomes a pivot, and then Xatu can start charging up energy to it while drawing cards. Because if we can attach a Psychic Energy to Dragapult, yeah, it only needs 1, but if we do it with Xatu and get some draw power off of it, that's a lot better than just manually attaching it, or at least that's my view. And then we can manually attach a Dark to a Monkey Dory for turn instead. In 6th place, we are seeing Andretti's Tox box, like Toxtricity box, I think. What did I call it here? Vibrant Voltage. So you've got Toxtricity that has the attack Loud Mix, base damage of 50, and then 30 more damage for each different type Pokemon that's on your bench. So you basically just want like a bench full of Skittles. We've got a colorless Pokemon in here in the Dunsparce that gives you draw power with runaway draw, as well as a free retreat option in just the pre-evolution Dunsparce. Scales up your damage too, so not a bad shout. We've got Jirachi counting as your steel type, just preventing damage counters from being put out on you. Tatsugiri giving you a way to get into some supporter cards with attract customers. Cleffa for early game, you can use grasping draw until you have 7 cards in your hand, has free retreat, and gives you a psychic type Pokemon to use. Morpeko gives you dark type Pokemon you can use, and it has free retreat as long as it doesn't have any energy attached to it, so it's pretty convenient. We have the baby Pokemon with free retreat, but they only have 30 HP. This having 70, a little bit better. Obviously, Monkey Dory just being able to move damage counters on this and knock it out instantly. You can't do that on here at least, so that's kind of the one-up it gets. Shaman, just to give you a grass type Pokemon to have. The attacks on it aren't really relevant, so Pinpoint Dive does 60 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon EX or V. There's none of those in this format, so it's kind of irrelevant. You could technically use Rear Kick that does a base of 50 for 2 colorless energy, so maybe if you're hitting something for weakness, it could help fix up some numbers. It's a basic Pokemon. It's got free retreat though, so that's kind of the main selling point there. We are seeing a Lekid in here, and that one did kind of confuse me, so I did ask Andretti what was the logic behind it, and it was just having Cracking Shot to be able to put out some damage, like 30 damage onto something, just to fix up some numbers that you might have missed a knockout. It's not a bad shout, and it's on a basic Pokemon, so if you don't have another Toxtricity ready to go the following turn, you could technically be attacking with this. I'd kind of more opt just to always focus on having another Toxel being your benched electric Pokemon, but they said that it did come up, so I'll respect it. I didn't play the deck, so I can't really comment. It's just one of those things that, yeah, you could swap it out with something else, potentially. Seeing a Magby in here to count as your fire Pokemon, also has an attack for free, being a baby Pokemon. During your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, you get to put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So a great way just to be able to like, hey, I'm not attacking you, but if you're going to attack me, it's like I attacked you, and it softens you up, and then Toxtricity finishes you. So not a bad shout. And Mantike being your water type Pokemon in here. You can heal 120 damage from one of your bench Pokemon with it. It's got free retreat. It's also got 30 HP though, so a little risky. For the water Pokemon, I feel like just kind of seeing where this meta is going, we are seeing a bit of spread. It might make sense to swap that out with a Manaphy, but that's just my 2 cents on it. Obviously, they did pretty good. They made it into the top 8, so there's some justifications for it, I'm sure. For the supporter cards though, pretty standard stuff again. We're seeing Arven, Iono, Research, Boss. Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking showing up here is pretty cool, so just look through your deck, put 2 cards right on top of it. If you combo this with the Dunsparce, just straight draw into 3, you're guaranteeing yourself 2 cards and then getting a bonus one off of it too, so not a bad shout. Lana for some recovery. Hassel seeing play in this is an interesting one. You can only use this if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Then you're going to get to look at the top 8 cards of your deck though, put 3 of them into your hand, shuffle the others back into your deck. So it's sort of like Colress. You get to look at a few more cards, you get to keep 1 extra card, but it's only if something got knocked out. Interesting take. Morty's, we've talked about it before. Ditch a card, draw 1 for each of your opponent's benched, and Airzu, just a great way to get into your Toxtricities and to Dunsparces. Pokemon Search being in here, Earthen Vessel being in here, Electric Generator obviously helping charge up your Toxtricity. Having 2 energy in the attack cost can be a little bit awkward. You've got a lot of free retreaters, so put a free retreater in the active. Use Cypher Maniac, guarantee yourself 2 lightning energy on the top of the deck. Use Electric Generator, guarantee those energy are going onto this. Attach for turn to another Toxel, following turn, just an attachment. Another Toxtricity's online, so yeah, that's a solid call out. What else we got in here? Pokemon Search, we are seeing a bit of a different one in Capturing Aroma. So flip a coin, you either get a basic or an evolution. In this deck, you're not really fussed which you get because it's kind of a win either way. Just basic, get another thing to boost up Toxtricity's damage. Evolution, get a Toxtricity. So win-win either way. And yeah, in 7th place, we are seeing Mohar's Hailstorm Hounds. So it's got Arcanine as the main attacker. It's got a free attack, it does 30 damage, and if your bench Pokemon have any damage counters on them, 90 more. So potentially 120 damage for no energy. Not a bad shout. You've got Frostlass in here that's going to be putting damage counters on your Pokemon with abilities, so if you have something with an ability benched, between turns, damage it, Arcanine can start doing some pretty dirty numbers. It's definitely an interesting concept, I like it. And it's also softening up your opponents, so then you have Monkey Dory, get a dark energy on it, move some damage off yourself onto some of your softened up opponents, guys, and maybe take a double prize turn, like knock something out off the bench and then knock something out in the active. Also has Dodrio. So its ability, Zooming Draw, lets you put a damage counter on it and draw a card. So another way to get Arcanine online and without having to wait between turns for it to happen. Because if you get Arcanine and Frostlass out, well, Frostlass isn't putting damage counters out until that turn ends. So Arcanine's just kind of sat there like, oh, I'm not doing anything yet. But with Dodrio, it's like, well, I'll just damage myself. Now you do extra damage and you get a card. So like, that's a win. It's also a great attacker since Ballistic Beak is going to do 30 damage for each damage counter on it. So as Frostlass is putting damage counters out, it's making Dodrio stronger. As Dodrio is hurting itself and drawing cards, it's making itself stronger. And then you have Monkey Dory to just make sure that your Dodrio is never getting to that point where it's like between turns gets knocked out by Frostlass itself, right? Like if this gets to 80 damage, it's like, well, I have to use Monkey Dory and move some of that off, or Frostlass is going to kill it when it goes to their turn and comes back to me. So just something to keep an eye out on. Okidogi also showing up in this deck. We do have Dark Energy for the Monkey Dory. We do have Luminous Energy that can help for the Monkey Dory and can help for the Okidogi. I think there was a bit of an oversight on this one though. So we only have Luminous Energy to count for fighting type. You do need 2 fighting type energy to attack with Okidogi. And Luminous Energy, if you have any other special energy, it just becomes a colorless. So if they put 2 Luminous Energy onto the Okidogi, it's still not able to attack. So I think that might have just been a bit of a whoopsie moment in that space. Probably have to swap something out for a fighting energy just to get the most out of your Okidogi. Like maybe just change 1 dark into a fighting. So it's like a 2-1-2 line. And then it's just attach a fighting, attach a luminous, Okidogi can attack. I could be missing something, but I feel like, yeah, that just doesn't work. Well, I know that doesn't work. Unless it's just having it in there as like a big bulky guy in the active while Frostlass slowly chips things down and you try and get a Dodrio online. Like you could go that route, I suppose. The supporters though, nothing we haven't seen from the other list. Airzu being a solid way to get our evolutions. Iono, Arbin, Boss, Cypher Maniacs. Cypher Maniac comboing with Dodrio is pretty cool. I do like that because it's just like, hey, put 2 things right on the top. Dodrio, get me one of those things. Would be interesting to see if this list was adapted, including this, and then having something like Gutsy Pickaxe just to combo it, get a fighting energy immediately onto Okidogi, and then attach a luminous energy for turn onto it. That could be an interesting route to take it, especially since there is a rescue board in here to give something for your retreat to pivot into it. Could be something worth exploring. Judge in there for some disruption, and then Arita gets you your Frostlass, gets you your other items. We do have damage bump as well, so as things are getting a bit chipped by Frostlass, you can just pump that damage onto Dodrio to do some pretty big numbers. I like that, that's pretty spicy. And then what? Hand Trimmer showing up. That's an interesting one. That is actually an interesting one. So each player discards their hand until they have 5 cards. Opponent discards first. I feel like that's probably just, you would cut that for a fighting energy. Cut a dark, cut a Hand Trimmer for fighting energy just so you could get the Okidogi online maybe. Because yeah, I feel like you probably want at least 2 basic fightings in there just to try and get that out. But yeah, very interesting list. Very interesting list. Also having the Devolution TM in there. So Frostlass, you're damaging some evolution guys. You devo them. All of a sudden they're knocked out. I like it. You can do some pretty dirty plays with that. And getting in 8th spot, we had TJ with a shocking spread deck. So this deck is all about just, well, wrecking your opponent's bench. So if they don't have Manaphy, you're going to be having a field day. And we've seen not a lot of decks were including Manaphy. So Electivire has the first attack, does 30 damage. And if you have any benched Magmortar, 90 more, no Magmortar in the deck. So it's just a 30 damage attack for 1 energy. It's there, I guess, if you need it in a pinch. The main reason we are running this though is for high voltage current. You're going to do 50 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. No conditions, like no, oh, they need to be damaged to do it. It's just, hey, 50 damage to them. You can mess some stuff up pretty badly with that and just start destroying benches. For other spread attackers in here, we do have Braviary. So this one puts 3 damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon that has damage counters on it already. So that's kind of the trade-off. Free attack, but conditional. So you need to find a way to get some damage out. So get an attack off with Electivire, follow it up with Braviary, or use Spinda. So Spinda for 1 colorless energy is going to do 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Your opponent's active Pokemon is also now confused. So you're getting some damage counters out, and then Braviary comes out and just finishes them off. The nice thing about this, I was going to say this did damage counters. No, this does straight damage. This one does damage counters. So with this, it it can get past Manaphy, which is really helpful. This one can't, and we've also got Raichu as another spread attacker that also can't get past Manaphy. Raichu is a situational one though, so be very careful if you try this deck out. Its attack is a lightning and a colorless called Collateral Bolt. It does 50 damage to each Pokemon that has damage counters on it. That includes your own. So if your opponent's running Frostlass and they've put some damage counters on your ability guys, like your Kirlias that are in here, your Tatsugiri that's in here, Raichu is going to be hurting them and just accelerating the rate that these go down, and then Frostlass between turns will finish them off. So be very careful. He's in here because he's another spread attacker. I feel like mainly Braviary, Electivire, and Spindo should be the ones that you're going for, but Raichu just having one less energy required to put 50 damage out, whereas Electivire needs 3, that's the reason it's in here. So yeah, it's good. And the other condition, obviously, that they need to have damage counters on them already. So Spinda has to help set up that Raichu as well. So keep that in mind too. For a draw engine though, we are seeing Kirlia in here. So ditch a card, draw 2 cards, and you can evolve them to Gallade to just get yourself a supporter from your deck. Very solid draw engine. We did see it win last week's tournament. It was in a Lost Box deck piloted by Cyrus Davis. Sick card. Seeing it in here, it makes sense. I feel like it's just a splashable draw engine you can put in most decks, and it's really good. Like, you need a boss for game, just get it. You need a fresh hand, grab a research. You need all your evolutions, grab Arazu. Like Gallade, value, solid card. Tatsugiri in here just to help get into supporter cards as well, and then the supporter card lineup, pretty straightforward stuff. Arazu, Research, Iono, Arven, and Boss. Seeing 2 copies of Counter Catcher in here does make sense. You're going to be doing a lot of chip damage, right? You're not knocking anything out in the active, you're trying to just knock out your entire opponent's board, or your opponent's entire board in one go. So with Counter Catcher, if they take a knockout into you, it's just like, all right, Counter Catcher, bring up their Manaphy, hit it in the active, like take it out. Because that's one of those situations where like Electivire, hit it for 30, doubles to 60, it's almost dead. Braviary, finish it off with damage counters, start putting out some chip, and then like Electivire or Raichu can start messing up their bench, or Spinda can start messing up their bench. So really, really cool. And having it at a 2 count, it makes a lot of sense. You're going to be down on prizes most of the game until you just win. Also, having Lost City in here, if you're taking out multiple Pokemon at a time, you're potentially taking out 2 of their basics, right? If they only have 2 of that basic in their deck and you lost on them, you might be shutting off their entire engine, which could break them. Also, if they're evolved, right? Like their evolutions, you can only ever have 2 copies of them. So for example, let's say they had 2 Curliers on their bench. We used High Voltage, we knocked them both out, they go in the Lost Zone, those aren't coming back that game. They are gone. So yeah, really solid conclusion. Kind of surprised that's not at a higher count, because I feel like it could just like make or break games, but I guess at the same point, you're not putting that in play until you're taking knockouts, so it's not like your opponent's going to bump it. It's like you put it down, you get the effect off it immediately, and they're having a bad time, you probably win. Canceling Cologne being in here as well, so we've got the double Counter Catcher. Said we could bring up Manaphy and hit it, but you can also just bring up Manaphy and then just hit their bench, right? So this is going to do 50 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon in play. You guessed Manaphy, Canceling Cologne is not protecting the bench. 50 damage, it's in the active, it doubles to 100, it knocks it out while also getting past their bench protection. Like, that's just such a sick play. And then we've got Luxurious Cape in here just to make your guys a little bit bulkier and harder to deal with. Rescue Board gives you some pivot potential, and then Turbo Energize just as a way to charge up our costly attack. So Electivire needing 3 energy, Raichu needing 2 energy can be a little bit awkward, so we just do that. Got Reversal Energy though too, so just 1 attachment and Electivire is online. We're going to be down on prizes. Very solid card to include in the list. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the roundup today, guys. What do you think? What was your favorite deck that we saw out of the top 8? And are you planning on participating in the upcoming budget build battle tournament number 3 this week? And what are you cooking up? I guess maybe that's top secret. You could let me know 1 out of the 59 cards though. There's a switch in there, I bet. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the format, and if you do, let me know in the comments down below. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys are based in North America or elsewhere in the world and the time zone of when I run the tournament doesn't really work for you, and you're like, hey, can you run something that's like Friday night for me? It's like afternoon for you because you're on the koala clock. Absolutely, I'd be more than happy to. I just kind of want to know that there's interest in it before I start shifting things around for scheduling purposes, just because it takes time to edit these videos, takes time to run that tournament, and it takes time to will get stuff done around my house too. I got like laundry and dishes to do. Yeah, I'm a human being. But yeah, no, I'm just rambling. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already. And till next time, stay golden, you Goomba.